The Blue Jays just made their first real move of the offseason, and it's not what anyone expected. We're not talking about Kyle Tucker or Willie Adams or any of the big names everyone's obsessing over. This is a sneaky depth signing that tells you everything about how Toronto approaches roster construction. And honestly, it's the kind of move that either turns into nothing or becomes the steal of the year. We're also hitting the arbitration deadline, which means decisions are getting made across the league. And T here is a wild new rumor connecting the Blue Jays to a first baseman that nobody saw coming. Let's break it all down. Carlos Mendoza just signed with the Toronto Blue Jays, not the Mets manager, but a 25-year-old utility player who spent last year bouncing between AA and AAA in the Tigers organization. This is almost certainly a minor league deal, so don't expect him on the opening day roster. But the profile is interesting. A Tigers minor league report from May described him as a winning baseball player who's annoying in the batter's box and pesky on the base paths. He puts the bat on the ball, works walks, and drives. Pitcher's crazy. The downside: he doesn't have much pop. His defense isn't great, and Detroit viewed him as an organizational guy rather than a future major leaguer. But here is why Toronto made this move. Between AA and AAA last season, Mendoza slashed .287 to .349, negative .409, with a .137 dock 8 strikeouts. He's played everywhere: second base, third base, both corner outfield spots, and he's only 25 years old. He doesn't swing and miss often, he draws walks, and he puts the ball in play consistently. If that doesn't sound like a Blue Jays player, I don't know what does. This screams potential Isaiah Kiner-Flefa replacement, or another version of Ernie Clement, someone who can fill multiple roles and provide value without needing to be a star. People are joking about this being an IKF replacement, but honestly, it's exactly the kind of depth move that makes sense. The Blue Jays love utility players who can move around the diamond and contribute in different ways. Clement was claimed off waivers from Oakland and turned into one of the most valuable bench pieces Toronto had last season. Mendoza might never reach that level, but here is zero risk in bringing him in on a minor league deal. If he forces his way onto the roster, great. If not, he provides organizational depth at AAA, Buffalo, and gives you an option if injuries pile up during the season. His career, 841 OPS in the minors, shows flashes of ability, even if he's been inconsistent at times, but that's the beauty of these moves. You are betting on upside without committing anything significant. Ross Atkins gets criticized for a lot of things, but signs like this show that the front office is constantly looking for edges, constantly trying to find value in places other teams overlook. It's not flashy, it's not going to dominate headlines, but it's smart baseball now. Let's talk about the arbitration deadline, because that's where things get really interesting. The deadline hit at 5 p.m., and Ben Nicholson-Smith confirmed that all 4 arbitration-eligible Blue Jays are expected back in 2026. Dalton Varsho, Zach Pop, Ernie Clement, and Chad Green are all returning, which means Toronto isn't cutting corners. To save money, they've already cleared 40-man roster space by parting ways with other players, so these 4 were always going to stick around. Clement and Varsho are regulars, Pop and Green provide bullpen depth and flexibility, and none of them were serious, non-tender candidates. The fact that Toronto is bringing everyone back signals they're not rebuilding or slashing payroll. They're keeping the core intact while pursuing external upgrades, which is exactly what a team trying to compete should be doing. This isn't a franchise clearinghouse to reset. This is a team that believes it's closed the gap. Whether that means Kyle Tucker, Willie Adams, or someone else entirely, the foundation is staying in place. But here is where things get wild. Jorge Castillo just dropped a report listing the Blue Jays as a potential fit for Pete Alonso in free agency, specifically stating he could be a replacement right-handed bat if they're unable to re-sign Bo Bichette. Wait, what? Pete Alonso to Toronto? On the surface, it sounds insane. Where does he even fit? You got Vladimir Guerrero Jr. playing first base and occasionally designated hitter. Anthony Santander is going to spend significant time at DH. George Springer is going to DH regularly. Alejandro Kirk will get DH at bats. How do you add another primary DH to that mix? But let's think about this logically. If Toronto doesn't bring back Bichette, they need to replace his right-handed power somewhere in the lineup. Alonso provides exactly that. He's a proven middle-of-the-order bat with elite power who can anchor the lineup behind or in front of Guerrero. The question is whether the Blue Jays are willing to commit big money to a DH-heavy roster construction. Santander and Springer are both guys who should primarily DH at this stage of their careers, even if they play some outfield. Kurt needs DH at bats to stay healthy. Adding Alonso creates a logjam unless Toronto gets creative with rotations and matchups. You could make it work. Guerrero plays most of first base with occasional DH days. Santander splits time between right field and DH. Springer splits between right field and DH. Kirk catches and DH occasionally. Alonso DHs primarily with occasional first base appearances. When Guerrero needs a day off, it's crowded, but it's possible. The real question is whether that's the best use of resources. Does it make more sense to allocate that money toward Kyle Tucker or another offensive value along with offense? Or do you go all in on offense and figure out the defense later? Reports are starting to fly about Toronto being ultra-aggressive this offseason. Multiple analysts and insiders are saying the Blue Jays aren't just running it back. They're going big. Bob Nightingale recently said he believes Toronto is going all in and acquiring multiple elite pieces. It's rare for a team to land two big fish in one offseason, but all signs point to that being the goal. Kiki Mate mentioned on his recent appearance that the Blue Jays are ready to open the checkbook, and every insider seems to agree that something major is coming. So where does Alonso fit into that? If the splash is Kyle Tucker plus Willie Adams tier, is probably not room for Alonso unless Bichette is moved. If the splash is Alonso plus someone else, it signals a different direction entirely, one focused on maximizing offense and worrying less about defensive flexibility. Toronto was reportedly involved with Alonso, and they ended up with Scherzer. Maybe this year they circle back and close the deal here. Here is what makes this entire offseason fascinating. The Blue Jays are connected to everyone. Tucker, Adams, Bellinger, Alonso, and whoever else might become available through trade or free agency. They're not sitting back waiting for the market to come to them. They're actively pursuing multiple paths, which means when moves start happening, they could happen fast and in combinations. Nobody expects. The Mendoza signing is just a beginning. It's a low-risk depth move that shows the front office is working every angle from minor league free agents to potential blockbuster trades. The arbitration deadline passing with everyone returning is another signal that Toronto is keeping the foundation while building on top of it. They're not tearing down, they're upgrading. And the Alonso rumor, as wild as it sounds, is another reminder that this front office is thinking bigger than most fans expected. Whether it's Alonso, Tucker, Alms, or someone else entirely, the Blue Jays are positioning themselves to make noise this winter. Drop your thoughts below, because this is the kind of offseason that defines franchises, and if you are still riding with Toronto through all the uncertainty, let's see, we're Fry.